Wonder Woman 1984 is finally here. This movie was originally supposed to release in November 2019, then it got pushed to June 5th this year, but due to the pandemic, it kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed, and in a very historic move, the movie is now in some places already out, but it's going to be released in the US on December 25th and concurrently on HBO Max on the very same day. This movie is, of course, a sequel of sorts to the first Wonder Woman movie and is the latest film in the DC cinematic universe, and I'm not gonna tell you too much about what happens in it. If you watch the trailers, then you have an idea of what's going on in this movie, but if you haven't seen the trailers, I'd rather not say anything. Wonder Woman 1984 is a movie that I was very excited for. I loved the first one, and ever since I've seen the first one, it's a film that has gotten actually better for me. It's a film that I first watched, I was like, oh, that's an 8.5, like A- level movie. But on subsequent viewings, I bumped that up to like a 9. And so, obviously, I was very excited to see Gal Gadot once again return in the role, and she's great. She's fantastic in this movie as well. In fact, I would say she's even better here than she was in the first movie. I would say this is actually her best performance as the character. There's a few scenes in particular where she takes her acting to like another level, and if you're somebody who was like, I don't really like her as an actress, you're about to be a little surprised. There's a few emotional beats in this movie that are really great. No spoilers, I'm assuming, because he's on the posters and in the trailers, but Steve Trevor is in this movie. I'm not gonna explain how, but Chris Pine, fantastic, once again. They do something interesting with him, which was basically make him Diana from the first movie. If you've seen the first one, you know that when she enters London, she's a fish out of water. She doesn't know how things work, how people are, how they interact with one another. And so she's making decisions and mistakes that are very illogical compared to how it is in Themyscira. And so it leads to some comedic moments like that. Very similarly, Steve Trevor is in 1984, but he's now in a world that Diana knows really well. So the conversations and the things that he's seeing are strange for him. And it's nice to see that sort of role reversal takes place. Kristen Wiig as Barbara Minerva, also really, really great. She is one of the film's major standouts. I really love what she did with this role. And again, no spoilers, as you know, she is Cheetah. And she does a phenomenal job at it. One of the better things to come out of this movie. Which is not to say this movie is not good. In fact, I really liked this movie. I think I forgot to mention that at the beginning of this review. I don't think it's as good as the first one. I think it's a hair below it, but I had a wonderful time with this movie. I watched it via a screener link that was sent by Warner Brothers. I did not go to a theater. The screener was in IMAX, so you had the frame open up in certain scenes. Mainly the first one. If the movie opens with the scene on Themyscira, which has been uploaded on YouTube, so I don't think that's a major spoiler. That scene, phenomenal. It's absolutely brilliant. The stunts and the way it's shot, gorgeous. Hans Zimmer's score, phenomenal stuff. I can't wait to listen to this thing on loop. It's already out, so if you've already been listening to it for the last few days, congratulations. He does a brilliant job once again. Pedro Pascal as the villain was a bit over the top at times. Actually, a lot. Some people will like what he does. Some people will kind of dislike his character. But he had a great time with this role. I can say this with certainty, that he was having the most fun in this entire movie. One of the things that I really liked about this movie was the fact that they gave the antagonists and people that Diana's against eventually a lot of depth. You get a lot of character development for Barbara, and you actually do care for her. They don't give you a lot, but they give you certain scenes here and there where you sort of understand where she's coming from, and you do sympathize with her as certain things in her life start to happen, as is the case with Diana, because you're already on her side. But one of the things that makes a superhero movie compelling is that you can also have a compelling villain. If you don't have that, then you sort of lose a very major, shall I say, a major aspect of it, a major characteristic of it. And the best superhero movies that are out there have a very strong villain, have someone who is at the center of it, who is the opposite of our hero, in a very really well done manner. And I think Wig did a wonderful job with that. You even get some stuff with Max Lord, which they also did a really decent job with. Again, it's a character that is hard to completely love because he's chewing the scenery throughout this entire movie, and there's going to be a lot of criticism probably given to that, but he did a great job. Now, what I think is going to be debatable about this movie is the fact that it's not exactly the sequel that you probably expected. If you're somebody who was expecting a lot more action, a lot more Wonder Woman, I am sorry to tell you this is not that movie. In fact, Wonder Woman herself in costume shows up early on in the movie, and then for about an hour and a half, you don't get any Wonder Woman. So there's going to be a long period of time where you're just with Diana Prince. Now that can be a little irksome for some people, especially if you're going to a big comic book movie, you want to see more costume related stuff. This one definitely takes a step back in that regard, which some of the stuff that I really like in comic book movies is when we actually get to spend some more time with characters out of costume. Some of my favorite comic book moments in general, when I flip through pages as a kid, and I still do, some of my favorite moments are when you spend some time with them in their more human or normal forms. For example, some of my favorite moments in Spider-Man comics were with Peter Parker. And some of my favorite moments in DC Comics, Clark Kent, Bruce Wayne, so on and so forth. The reason I mention that is because you spend a lot of time with Diana, and some of my favorite scenes in this movie are just her as her. Yes, one of my favorite scenes in the movie is also with her in costume, but I'm not going to spoil that for you, obviously. But they did a wonderful job of making her a more human character and someone that you could, someone you could spend some time with. And the smaller moments, because of that, mattered more. My favorite scene in the first movie, for instance, was the snowfall scene, where she's dancing with Steve Trevor and one of the soldiers is playing music on the piano. It's a beautiful scene. And there's a moment quite like that in this movie, which I thought was amazing. I liked those moments. I like moments like that in comic book films. So I personally really like this movie because of that, because it decides to take some time. That being said, the first hour of this movie can feel very slow-paced. Not much happens in it, and it can be a little dull for some people. And I won't lie, there were points where I found it to be a little dull as well. It's like, all right, let's get the show going, guys. I mean, we're about a half hour in. Let's pick up the pace here. It does take a while to sort of get going, which was definitely a bit of a missed opportunity, in my opinion, in terms of pacing. One other thing I feel I should mention was sometimes in one scene in particular, there was some noticeable CGI. Mostly I could notice that it was wire work. And there's a scene where Diana's jumping, and you could tell like that there was a wire which shot her up there, because it feels very stiff. The movement, that is. I don't know, some people will have more issues with the CGI, I feel like it. There's two scenes in here where I feel like there's going to be some criticism. One thing this movie does improve on, though, which I am very pleased to report, is the third act. The first movie had a third act which a lot of people didn't love, and for a lot of people that was the weakest aspect of the movie. As myself. This actually had a much better third act. In fact, I would say of the DC Universe movies that we've gotten so far, it might have my favorite third act of the entire series. That's also going to be subject to opinion. I'm excited to hear from more people as they watch the movie, what they think of it. Again, like I said, no spoilers. I don't want to give much away. But overall, I really enjoyed Wonder Woman 1984. I think it's a film that a lot of people are going to like, and it has a wonderful message in it, no pun intended. It's a film that I can see being viewed by a lot of people, and it's a great holiday movie. This is a good time to release this film, honestly. It's a great way to wrap up 2020. If you're going to see this in theaters, just stay safe, be safe, maintain social distancing and all. If you're going to wait until HBO Max, it drops at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm going to give Wonder Woman 1984 an 8.5 out of 10. Like I said, I bump up my first one to a 9, so this one's a hair below it, but I really enjoyed this movie. I plan on seeing it again. I have access to the screener for a little bit, so I might just check it out again because I want to do the spoiler review, and that'll be up by Friday, so look forward to that. Guys, thank you very much for watching. If you've seen Wonder Woman 1984, what did you guys think about it? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the movies.